of the matter is North Korea is wanting to be respected, and that's why they even set off the hydrogen bomb that might or might not have been real. The whole entire goal is to be respected, building this nuclear arsenal. When you actually look at what North Korea actually's goal is not to take over South Korea, but it's to flex its muscle and be a bigger political player. That's why they have been trying to do and make it more clear that they are that political player. We're going to see that under today's debate, not only do they not solve the problem and are the harms not as great as they seem, we actually are going to see a disadvantage is going to happen if you pass their plan that is much worse than giving them the THAAD system. Because again, they are developing a system on their own currently. This system might not have as high of a range, but that does not mean that the system will be insufficient, and they've already put money into that. With that said, let's go ahead and look at a disadvantage, which is that of China angered. China angered. The first point we're going to look under this, which is either the uniqueness or subpoint A, which is that the idea of Chinese distrust. Chinese distrust. Now, South Korea is resisting THAAD due to Chinese pressure. That's the whole entire reason why they haven't actually been accepting THAAD or even asked for THAAD, is because they don't want to accept it because they're getting Chinese pressure. Even in cross-sex, when I was asking Grace about this, I was trying to get specifics on what the political uncertainty was, and one of those things was China. We have to see this under this point from Bruce Kellinger, the Senior Research Fellow for Northeast Asia at the Heritage Foundation of Asian Study Center in June 12, 2015, said, quote, South Korea persists in resisting both deployment or more effective interceptors and incorporating its independent system into a comprehensive allied network. Even the potential U.S. deployment of Terminal High Altitude Air Defense, that's THAAD, to strengthen alliance, BMD, that's ballistic missile defense, on the Korean Peninsula has been controversial due to Chinese pressure on Seoul. We see that the reason why is because they know that China, they don't want it because of the Chinese pressure. We look that China has only mentioned this about THAAD, it hasn't said anything about the LSAM system. We see that the system that they're developing right now is not angering China, and we're going to see that later down, the reason for that. It's, one of the reasons I have to tell you now. The reason for that is because the LSAM, like they said, has a lower missile capability, can't go as high. That means it can't interfere in Chinese airspace. They don't want a missile system that can interfere in Chinese airspace, and that's one of the reasons why. This LSAM that they're developing doesn't have that ability, and while it may take a number of years, we see that South Korea is willing to do that because of Chinese pressure. The second point we're going to look under this is the second uniqueness, or subpoint B, is that of no U.S. action. No U.S. action. The Korean Times on March 13, 2015 said, quote, the government's stance is there's no's. This is what they even read this piece of evidence. The government's stance is 3 no's. No request, no consultation, and no decision, presidential spokesman said. What we see is that they have no request. They haven't requested it. It's not the U.S.'s job to offer a system to South Korea. This is South Korea. It's their ability to control their own country, and so they are the ones who would request that system if they wanted the THAAD system. And so we see that they have made no request for the system. The next point you see is that they're implementing THAAD, which ends up leading into the next point, which can be tagged as the internal link, which is that of Chinese dependence. Chinese dependence. This is going to talk about South Korea's dependence on China currently. So from CCTV, an Asian news source, on August 1st, 2013, they say, quote, China is South Korea's #1 trading partner. Last year, almost a quarter of seal's exports went to Beijing, increasing at a rapid pace over the past decade, end quote. What this is talking about is how dependent South Korea is on China. They're their #1 trade partner. And so angering your #1 trade partner is a bad thing, because that's where you get your most economic gain, that's where you get your exports, that's where you get all of your supplies, and you don't want to anger them and possibly put tariffs or any sort of aggression toward your biggest trade partner. With that said, the next part of this disadvantage is that of China's concerns. Now we have to actually see what China's concerns are over the THAAD system. If we look at this from the Diplomat on February 20, 2015, it says, quote, whenever a state places defensive weapons in a system at a forward base to protect forward forces from a specific adversary, this can easily give rise to political misunderstandings by neighboring states, resulting in unintended military escalation. For China, the deployment of THAAD to South Korea is just as an apparent provocation. The deployment would imply that South Korea is part of the ballistic missile defense led by the U.S. Missile Defense Agency. What we see is that China doesn't want THAAD, and they basically have talked about their concerns over THAAD multiple times. The next point of this is that we have to see what China's response would be if we actually allowed the implementation to happen. It says, this is from the Deputy Director for Breaking Defense, Sidney J. Berg on March 6th of 2015. Said, quote, "Just the idea of deploying THAAD is already controversial in South Korea and outright condemned by China," admitted former Pentagon strategist Van Jackson, now a senior fellow at the Center for New American Security. Basically, China has condemned this over and over and talked about how they don't want this to happen. What ends up happening now is we see that South Korea is going to be weakened because of China's relationship. We see that they're condemned so that China won't allow, if that is implemented, relations are actually going to go down with China. The impact of that is the economy being hurt in South Korea. The economy being hurt in South Korea. If you actually look, if your number one trade partner actually does less trade with you, that ends up hurting the economy in South Korea, which leads to the next impact, which is South Korea weakened. South Korea weakened. If your economy is being hurt by China, you will never be able to pay for a THAAD missile system that they actually haven't given a price on how much, or did you guys give a price? No, can't ask you that. I'm not sure if they gave a price, maybe they did give a price on that system, but we've never seen if South Korea will be able to even pay for it. So with that said, we see that it's actually going to end up making South Korea worse off than they are currently because they're actually going to be weaker than they were before. If we go to the solvency point, this ties directly into the solvency point. Let's look at the very last point of that solvency point, subpoint C, about they won't pay. He basically said politics and that they need this system, so they will get this system. The fact of the matter is, if you need something but you can't pay for it, then nothing's going to happen. So my first response is they don't have the necessary money. Response to the solvency, his third response to subpoint C. My response is that he don't have necessary money. The fact of the matter is they're already investing in the LSAM system because they know this system isn't going to anger China. So you can't just say they will buy it, they're just political, they're saying they won't pay, this is just politics, of course they're going to try to get it for free. No, the fact of the matter is they actually want it for free. You don't just in politics say, I want an entire missile system for free if you don't mean that. They actually mean that, and so we see that they don't have the necessary money because of their investment in the LSAM system. But the second thing is, that's actually the same thing. They already started the system. So we see that they've already had the system. The system is already in development, and they're already trying to plan for putting the system in because they know it will anger China. At the end of the day, when you look at what North Korea's actual objective is to be a bigger political power, that they just basically want respect. And when you see that implementing the THAAD system to South Korea doesn't want, China doesn't want, and it will just aggravate North Korea. We see that all of these reasons are not reasons to implement that because they don't need the system. They haven't asked for the system. They don't want the system. We shouldn't be wasting US money to give a system that they don't want. It's going to make relations and international stability even worse. For all these reasons, I ask for a negative ballot. Thank you.
Oops.
Can you use this one?
Actually, I'm going to use this one. Okay. Are you ready? Actually, I'm going to use this. Is that right? Okay. Begin. Well. Okay, so you read a piece of evidence from Bruce Klinger about Chinese distrust, I believe. Can I see the piece of evidence?
Yeah, you can ask me a question while I'm going
okay.
to find that.
Okay, so actually, I know, my next question is going to be about the evidence, so I kind of
Chinese, wait, is it this one? I think it's this one. This top one.
No, that's Sidney Friedberg.
Okay.
Oh, this didn't actually start, so.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Okay, okay, I'll ask, okay, yeah, you can just, do that. Okay, so.
I'm not finding it.
Actually, I think, that's
there
yeah,
it is,
that's
right
it.
there.
Okay.
This one.
So you would agree that this article that you're talking about, South Korea distrust, is titled South Korea Needs THAAD Missile Defense, correct?
It says where are you?
Right, the title of the article, the title of the article is South Korea Needs THAAD Missile Defense, correct?
But it's saying that, yes,
okay.
I would agree that, but I would also agree that after that it talks about how China want it. So whether they need it or not, South Korea doesn't want it. We're not arguing that it wouldn't be a good system, we're saying that they don't want it and they can't have it, and the actual negative impacts outweigh having it.
So you had the
yeah.
Sidney J. Friedberg evidence, right, about the econ being hurt? So could I see that piece of evidence too? Sure. Okay, so you would agree that this piece of evidence is called, the title of this article is Save Our Soul, South Korea Needs THAAD ASAP, correct?
I would agree that all of those articles are titled
Mhm.
that, and then it talks about the implications, though,
Okay.
of getting that. So whether it
So-
says it's a good, we're not arguing with the system's capabilities, we haven't argued with how good the system is, we're arguing with how that system is actually going to cause all the negative consequences.
But all of the
because
pieces of
that.
evidence, these people you're saying are credible people saying that these things would happen, they're still saying, in the end, South Korea should have THAAD.
They're saying that is a good system. The fact of the matter, if you can't give something to
No, they're
someone
not.
who's not going to take it.
Okay, sure.
So,
Okay, so you basically, okay. So you said that
look
LSAM
at the
can't
actual-
interfere in Chinese airspace. So do you have any evidence that THAAD can actually interfere in Chinese airspace?
yeah, because of the actual range of the system. You guys are talking about the
Really?
range of the system. If you actually look at the specifics and the range of the system, China said itself that one of the reasons is because it can interfere with Chinese
So
airspace.
THAAD is a terminal system, correct?
What do you
Are you aware of what a terminal missile defense system is?
Basically, what I'm saying is that it can still interfere with Chinese airspace, is the fact when the missiles are launched, so they don't want that.
Okay, sure. So why would China not want the THAAD system to be able to intercept their missiles? If the only reason China would want South Korea not to have missile defense is if they were launching missiles at
Well,
South
one of the reasons is because China, one, just doesn't want the U.S. involved in the region, that's China's stance, and also, like the evidence was talking about, it said it would say they're part of the U.S.'s ballistic missile defense, and one of the first, piece of evidence I was talking about.
Okay, so basically what this all impacts out to is South Korea is hurt because China puts tariffs on them, sanctions, whatever, right?
What I'm saying is it's their number one trade partner, and they don't want to anger
Uh-huh.
them. That's why they will not accept that, because they don't have the money and that reason.
Okay, sure, thanks.